knowing that you're getting paid what is competitive is the biggest deal for sure. And so one thing I've noticed in our last 10 placements, 50% of people have gotten a sign-on bonus, which has gone up a lot. Our last 100 placements, only 18%. So we've really done some research and we've dug in, and we're really advocating for all NPs and PAs to be getting sign-on bonuses that aren't tied to some ridiculous payback over 4 years. It's a 1-year payback if you leave. We really help you look out for stuff like that as well. But we're advocating for you guys to get sign-on bonuses because they're getting someone who's going to bring a lot of revenue into their practice when they're getting somebody as an NP or PA. And you're worth it. So start asking for sign-on bonuses. We are telling everyone that. It's something we're pushing our clients on and telling them, like, look, if you want great people, they deserve this. So that's something that I really want to make sure we're telling people out there. And we're really transparent with all numbers and everything. And we tell our clients straight out, you know, you need to have a sign-on bonus because these people deserve it, they're worth it, and they're asking for it more. So it's pretty cool to help in that way. We enjoy that. We want to get you as much as we can. And just so you're aware, with us, like, we don't get paid for you to get paid more. That's not how, in typical recruiting, that can sometimes work like that. We are actually paid a flat rate. So what we are under contract with all of our clients to go out, find great talent. It really doesn't matter what you make. But it does to us, right? Because we're in dermatology, that's all we do. So we want to make sure you're getting fairly, you're doing a great job, and that means less turnover for the clients. So they ultimately appreciate that. So, but going back to what Joe was talking about, one thing that can make you really valuable, whether you have experience or not, is knowing about that production and then the collections. So I want to do two things first: define what collections are, define production. So production is, I went into the office, I saw 40 patients, and this is the total that I billed for the day. Now that total gets turned over to admin in your practice, and then they try to collect all that money, right? So you're paid on collections, not necessarily what was billed, as Joe was talking about, right? And it's really important that any practice you go to, that you know your numbers. You cannot, as Joe had alluded to, it's a red flag for you to take a job where somewhere while you're interviewing, they don't give you an average of collections of what their current NPs or PAs are making. Well, maybe they never had an NP or PA there. Okay, then let's talk about what your doctors are doing, and let's compare that to what my schedule would be and how many patients a day I would be seeing. We would help you break that down and know. But you have to advocate for yourself if you're out there doing this on your own, especially. If you have us in your corner, you're going to be good. But if you are on your own, it's really important that you know that what your production is and what the collections are going to be, as Joe stated. Because again, let's go back to that practice 1 and 2. Over here, you're going to collect 600,000. Over here, you're going to collect $1 million. What percentage am I getting of that smaller number or bigger number? And especially if you're brand new and starting out, you may have a practice telling you, well, look, we only pay 20% of collections, but it's because most of our NPs and PAs are bringing in $1 million. Well, I'm still worth 25%, right? Or I'm still worth this or that. You have to know, based on your experience, what you're willing to accept, and then also know what those numbers are so that you know at the end of the year, that equates to me making about this much in total compensation between my base salary and what I'm going to be able to produce in that production bonus. So one thing that you'll see on your screen is the sample production explanation. This really applies to everyone in every specialty, I think, but I tell people, if you're in derm now and you're not able to create one of these, you have a problem. Because if you're in derm now, you should know what your production is. So meaning that you have last year's data, for example. We're only in February. So if you have 2024's data to be able to say, this is how much I collected last year, that's where this is really going to help you. But if your practice is telling you, well, we don't give you that, we don't let you know, well, great. How do you pay me then if I'm getting paid on a percentage of that? And that's a question that has to be asked and that has to be transparent to you. We're never,
Michelle,
yeah.
this point cannot be underemphasized.
Mhm.
And I think that not just looking back a year,
Mhm.
practices that are well run, good businesses are going to provide you, once you've been working for a little while, they are going to provide you monthly numbers based on how well they're collecting for your services. And it's so important for us to know our value, and that value is 100% based on collections. And that's how you can decide whether your contract and your reimbursement is fair enough based on the amount of money that's being collected. So go right ahead, Michelle. We're getting a lot of questions in the chat. I think we're covering them as we're going.
Okay.
At some point, let's pause and talk about new grad opportunities, and also breaking into the field of
Yep,
derm or derm hobby-ish opportunities. We
definitely.
will we will spend some time going over that,
Yeah.
because I'll tell you guys, I was in that position once as well, and Michelle and I can really help provide you the resources that you need to have the great opportunity in dermatology.
And this production explanation is something that you definitely want to be able to create. So this is an actual document. And if you don't have the data, you can't create it, right? So this is really what I call a production explanation. This is something that you would give to a practice that you're going to work for, right? And if you don't have your numbers, you can't do it, right? So you need to know your numbers for the last 2 to 5 years. You need to know that your years of service, your Google reviews, all of those things that you see denoted on this sample production explanation. This is really just a one sheet or even an email that goes along with your resume for a practice that you have an interview for. I would not give this to anyone unless I was interviewing with them and I really wanted a job there. This is your private information that you would only share if you're really going after that job and you really want to make sure you're there. So I want to make sure that you are aware of that. I wouldn't send this out with every resume for an application, but I would if I was having a formal interview with them or I was at an offer stage. So keep that in mind. And this is something you can take a photo of, or this will be recorded as well. And the details on here are what are really important. Making sure that you have that 2 to 5 years data, ensure your resume matches your years of service and such. Make sure you find Google reviews that are positive for you, insert those links in there so that they see you're a real person and they see that, oh, this person knows what they can bring to our practice. It's really a win-win. If you want them to value you, this is a great way to get that value out of them and make sure that you're getting the compensation that you deserve for sure.
Michelle, let me just pause for just a sec, because we're getting some specific questions coming
Mhm.
in about what that worth is. And
Yep.
it was on a slide and we spoke to it, but I think that in general, in the world of dermatology, we're talking about experienced PAs and NPs. What that means is 3 to 5 years experience working autonomously with one or two medical assistants, seeing above 30 patients a day. Based on that, what percentage of collections, when you look at a base salary plus collections overall, when you look at a number, you say, okay, I've been doing this, I'm bringing in $500,000 for the practice a year. What percentage of that would be a fair compensation? Um, and I'm using $500,000. It could well be $1 million, but what's the percentage that is fair for a PA and NP? And Michelle showed a slide earlier with numbers on it, but I will tell you at a minimum, at that experience level, it's going to be 25% of your collections should be your baseline of what your value is. So
Yeah.
the question's coming in right now as I'm speaking from Darren West. So Darren, our friend and colleague and advisor, and a big part of the Dermatology Education Foundation. We've had these conversations together for 25 years. If you're bringing in $1 million for a practice, your value at minimum is 25% of what you're collecting. That means $250,000. That I would say is the bottom. And
Yeah.
and depending where you are, it would go up from there. So Michelle, we'll take your expertise on that.
No, I agree. Last year we said that Our actual average, and again, we are just using last 10, last 100, so don't get too caught up in that. But even in the last 100 placements, our average was 25%. When we looked at what our average was over the last like 3 years, we're really seeing in that 25 to 33% range of coverage. So I would tell you, I agree with Joe totally. Your minimum should be 25%. But if you've been around and you're kicking butt and taking names, you're doing a great job, you really should be at that 30% mark. Getting to 30% should be your goal. And when you've been doing this for 10 years plus, you can inch that up higher.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And there are two comments that are coming in hot in the questionnaire, Camille and Daryl. I mean, Darren, it's yes, if you've been practicing for a long time, your negotiation strategy should be based on your percentage of collections versus base salary. 100%. That's where you have those discussions. So you put a sheet together like Michelle showed. Maybe pop that slide up again, Michelle.
Yep.
And you go and have a conversation with your group and you say, okay, over the past 5 years, my collections are 800,000, 925, then 900. And then the last 2 years, it's been a million plus, right around $1 million. I want to stay here. I like this patient population. I appreciate this practice. It's a supportive environment. And I think based on my experience level and the numbers validate this, that my value to the practice is 30%. So that would mean 30% of say $1 million, that would equate to a $300,000 take home from your collections. Now, Michelle also talked about additional ways to generate revenue through product sales in the practice. So you could say, well, my patients buy a lot of sunscreen. They buy a lot of things from our product counter. My sales are, ten to $20,000 a month from the product counter. Make sure you are getting a rip. Make sure you're getting a percentage of those sales because oftentimes PAs and NPs are not getting a percentage on that. That can equate to an extra couple hundred to a couple extra $1,000 a month on top of the percentage of your medical and cosmetic collection.
Yeah, and we've seen an average, the people we've been talking to in New York, California, Texas, and Arizona, we're seeing like it used to be like 5%, which we thought was kind of low, but we're seeing that go up to as much as 20% now. I don't know what your experience with that has been, Joe, but we've seen 20% become kind of average now, which we think is decent.
Yeah, well, so yes, 100% that's fair because if you think about the products that they're selling, the products have uh the cost of the materials to the practice is minimal. The markup on them is 80% sometimes. There's no reason that a practice wouldn't want to share that revenue with their trusted PAs and NPs that are driving sales. It's a win-win. The practice makes more the more you sell, and you're going to be incentivized to provide those products if you think they're valuable to your patients, especially if you're incentivized by 20% of the sales versus 10%, which is kind of like, it's something. It's not nothing, but 20% is much more meaningful. I think that's a great point.
And I think too, it goes back to if you're in a practice now and you're like, look, I've been pushing for a higher percentage or a higher base, and they just won't give it to me. Putting this addendum together and going over it with your management, with your lead physician, whoever it is in your practice that makes those decisions, having this laid out for them and adding to this production explanation. And also, sold this many bottles of sunscreen last month, and because a lot of times they may not give you that data as well, right? And you're asking for it, and you're like, well, I think I sold this many, but I wanted to know how much revenue I brought in for that, or I'd like to add my revenue on products to this. That's going to become more and more important because you guys see out there, everybody has a product line typically in their office that they're selling. If it's not their own, then they're resellers. All of that has an ability for you to push those products and profit off of that in some way.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And also, it may be that there are ways through private portals outside of your individual practice where you're going to get 40% of
Mhm.
the collections that are coming in. So it makes more sense for the practice to partner with you and give you a percentage of product sales on a monthly basis. A fair percentage, which I agree, Michelle, that should be 20%.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of ways, but again, that transparency, I think, is what Joe and I are trying to always push with you. You can't sell yourself if you don't know your numbers. So if you have a practice that is pushing back hard on you, push back harder. Tell them, I need to know my numbers. I need to understand what I've been collecting. I need to know what I've been selling so that I have a strong understanding of that. The practices who care about you, they want to pay you what you're worth, and they are going to offer that stuff up to you. Otherwise, you need to call me and we need to look at a different opportunity for you, so that we can get you into being paid what you're worth. So that's really the key here. Um, is making sure you know those numbers to know whether you're getting a good deal or you're not, right? And you can always call us, as well as get onto the DEF website. And this community, we're always going to support you. I know Joe has conversations with people individually. I do as well, to help them to see where they're at, and really get that um, view of whether where they're at is the right long-term fit for them or not. So I know that we need to talk about too, Joe, getting people into the specialty of dermatology. These are some of those key skills people are looking for. Obviously, a lot of people want experience. In our case at My Derm Recruiter, we have a tiny percentage of jobs that are available to people first getting into derm. I will be very honest, again, transparent with you, that a lot of our clients, they tell us, nope, we're only going to take people from you that have 2 or more years. I know that's frustrating. It's frustrating for us as well. But again, utilize this network with DEF to get in those spots that make sense, that where they will take you without experience. And Joe can talk about a little bit more, but these are the skills that you see on the slide, that expertise and, excisions, biopsies, all your laser treatments, things like that. Your great communication skills will get you so far, guys. And your ability to work in a team environment is huge. Having examples and being ready to talk about how you're good at that throughout your interview process is really, really important. Aesthetics, you guys know, they're more and more popular every day. So injectable Botox, fillers, and all of that experience is becoming increasingly necessary, if you're going out, because usually there's a tiny percentage of, at least, of cosmetics in every practice that we work with. But breaking into derm, we know it can be hard. But the DEF provides this great ability to be at their meetings. And Joe, even personally, is connecting people with opportunities that make sense for people with less experience.
yeah, I think that the key skill, if we're talking about dermatology as a dermatology MP and PA, is experience. And experience doesn't come with with the waving of a magic wand, unfortunately. And sometimes the very first job that you get is not going to be the ideal job. But if that job allows you to get experience
Mhm.
seeing patients with other people, learning the day-to-day way to take a history and follow patients, and you develop an incredibly strong background in medical dermatology. That's the basis for the experience you're going to need to become um, a very well accomplished nurse practitioner, physician assistant in dermatology, and it makes you safer and better at all the cosmetic stuff, knowing the medical dermatology. And it's hard to get experience in medical dermatology. It just is. There are very few to none formal fellowships for NPs and PAs in dermatology. Dermatologists spend years following around experienced board certified dermatologists, going room to room and learning from them. The Dermatology Education Foundation, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is case-based learning, because that's how dermatologists learn. And that's how a lot of us learn as NPs and PAs. So finding an opportunity, the first opportunity in dermatology, if you don't have experience in dermatology, that would provide training with hands-on experience, really is invaluable, even though you may not be compensated well for it for that particular time, whether it's 6 months or a year or so. That experience will make you incredibly valuable over time, and identifying a individual practice or a group practice that has a validated, structured learning process, not just, hey, come for a couple months, follow this doctor around, then boom, we're going to stick you out and you're going to see 35 patients a day on your own. And don't worry, you can do it. That is not the type of experience that's going to give you what you need to be able to take really great care of patients in a medically safe way and keep you free of malpractice issues. So through Michelle and mydermrecruiter.com and the Dermatology Education Foundation, we really want to try and help you identify training opportunities to break into this specialty. And it's not easy. Like Michelle said, she gets a lot of requests. We get a lot of questions as well about how to break in. So what we're saying is that we're here to be, advocates and resources for you to help you identify good, safe programs from potential pitfall opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do have some experience, staying current is really important. Going to these DEF meetings, we're there every year. It's one of our most important meetings because we want to be standing in front of you, offering advice, offering opportunity, seeing if you have what you need. And that's why DEF and us are such great partners because we really are in the business of helping you. So you staying current, getting your CME, getting dermatology specific certs that makes sense for you are important, but again, gaining that hands-on experience with procedures, injectables, all those things, that's really the key, right? So that networking within the derm community to build strong professional connections can be done at DEF. It can be done with us as well, because if we do hear of things, I always tell people follow us on Instagram, because if we hear of something and we have a client who's like, hey, we're taking 3 people into one of our fellowships, or we're doing this or that for derm NPs and PAs, we will often post that stuff. So you can definitely follow us so that you're just made aware of it, that it's out there. It's a couple times a year we get that, or we may have an opportunity again that doesn't require experience, that allows you to learn derm in the office. So when those things pop up, we usually put them on our Instagram first, and then you'll see it roll out to all of our job boards and such also, okay? So we know that getting in is hard. We fully recognize it. Understanding employer expectations. This goes back to that. Are you being paid what you're worth? By thinking again in your mind about that production explanation, they want to know that you can handle, your patient load on your own. You can manage patient care independently. You're available to it. Your ability to adapt to change, different work environments, being fast, being, still maintaining high quality care, is really, really important. Employers are always looking for that. They want people who want to contribute to the practice overall. So culture is a thing that is very hard to interview for, but you as a candidate, I always tell you, you should be looking at the culture more than they are looking at you to be a fit. You need to be really looking at how long have the current NPs and PAs been there? Do they have a lot of turnover? Are they great? Are they doing well? Are they allowing me to talk to them in the interview process? Am I allowed to speak with somebody who's already working there, doing the job I want to get? If they're like, we don't really want you to do that, could be a red flag, right? So you really want to have that. As much as they have their employer expectations, you need to have yours as well to make sure that these things are actually going to be a fit for you in the long haul. If you want to work with
And
us to find an opportunity, obviously our job board is on the DEF website. It's also on mydermrecruiter.com, and the app, like I said, again, is My Derm Jobs.